AEW Revolution last night was live from the Crypto.com arena in Los Angeles, California, featuring some of the biggest matches and moments this year in All Elite Wrestling. However, some moments have been more widely discussed than others as possible mistakes or botches. We'll let you know some of these, infamous moments at AEW Revolution last night. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into, and in today's countdown video, we're discussing some of the bigger botches and mistakes coming out of last night's AEW Revolution pay-per-view. Now, we did do a watch-along. We have also done a post-show and some news coming out of it, so be sure to check all of that. As always, let me know your thoughts about some of these botches, some of these mistakes, and just general WTF moments coming out of last night's pay-per-view. This is certainly what this kind of video is going to be. Not necessarily just mistakes or botches, but rather, what the hell was that as well? Let's begin with a Deadly Angel's Wings. Now, the opening match of the show last night saw Hangman Adam Page defeat MJF. It was a clash between two former AEW World Champions, two AEW originals, and of course MJF actually had the lead in their feud going into this show yesterday. Now, the finish saw Hangman Adam Page utilize the Angel's Wings move, of course a move made famous by Christopher Daniels. Hangman Page recently retired, the former interim AEW EVP, and has been using his signature move ever since. But as you can see in the screen grab right there, this Angel Wings last night to MJF was a pretty rough landing. Usually, the talent gets the other wrestler up, lifts him up, it's a double underhook, gets him up, and they land pretty flat. Yes, you do kind of land face first, but your fall onto the canvas is broken by your chest, your stomach, and you kind of fall pretty flat, so your whole body, your whole torso actually absorbs the blow. That didn't really happen with last night's Angel's Wings attempt from Hangman Adam Page, because as you can see, he lifted MJF with the double underhook, but actually what broke MJF's fall last night was his face on the canvas. Yes, the first thing to hit the ground was MJF's face. The former AEW World Champion's face goes straight into the canvas, followed by the rest of his body in an absolutely sickening bump from the Angel's Wings. Now, as far as if he's picked up any injury or anything like that coming out of it, there haven't been any reports about that. We'll have to wait and see. Naturally, I think the referee and everyone involved would have checked MJF for a concussion to make sure he was okay, because that's not the best way to spend a Sunday evening in Los Angeles, is it? Face first, head first, straight into the canvas, courtesy of an Angel's Wings. And later on, of course, Hangman Adam Page did get the victory, I guess solidifying his recent babyface turn. But an absolutely brutal landing there for MJF. Now, did we see an injury in the TBS Championship match? Mercedes Moné continued her role coming out of 2024 into 2025, successfully once again defending her AEW TBS Championship against Momo Watanabe. Now, you might see this screen grab right here and say to yourself, well, is this the injury in question? There was a period of the match where Watanabe was hitting Mercedes with some pretty stiff kicks, and usually these kicks are around sort of the chest area, but sometimes, as happens in professional wrestling, it's live, you've only got one take, particularly when it comes to a kick later on the match through exhaustion and maybe just having your eye off the ball a little bit. Watanabe's kick actually connected flush with Mercedes' jaw, to the point that the referee for the match actually had to check on Mercedes several times to check that the TBS champion still had her jaw attached to her face and it wasn't shattered in a million pieces all over the ring. Seemingly, Mercedes is okay and it wasn't actually a problem, and as you can see, the kick kind of connected to her jaw and also sort of the neck region, could have hurt her throat, but it looks like she is okay. She got the victory after the Moné Maker, and actually coming out of the match, the injury possibly wasn't actually to Mercedes, but rather to the challenger for the TBS Championship. There was a spot actually before this where there was a move off the rope that Watanabe was doing to Mercedes, and it looked like that she landed awkwardly, possibly on her hip, something like that. And according to several reports, specifically one from Shaw Rossap of Fightful Select, Watanabe was actually carried to the back or assisted to the back last night. So there could be a problem, a possible injury to the challenger, not the champion, coming out of this one. Now, Leslie Jones. Yes, Leslie Jones. You may not know her. You may know her. Of course, a former SNL alumni. She was been in several films, a Ghostbusters remake. And one of the big talking points in the AEW World Championship #1 contenders match between Swerve Strickland and Ricochet last night wasn't necessarily just the action in the ring. It was an explosive affair. There was a lot going on. Swerve Strickland becoming the brand new #1 contender for the AEW World Championship, defeating Ricochet in the process, also getting back Prince Nana's robe. Nana initially walked out on his client, and it was actually all part of a ruse. Later on, distracted Ricochet, and it was a whole thing that was going on. But I guess one of the biggest talking points coming out of the match wasn't the action in the ring, but rather Leslie Jones on the outside of the ring. Now, there were several celebrities in attendance, as one would expect. The show taking place in California last night. Leslie Jones, Ken Jeong, Will Sasso, and others were all in attendance, along with several other celebrities. And at several points in the match involving Swerve Strickland and Ricochet, the camera kept panning to the former SNL star, where she was getting very visibly excited in the crowd, cheering on Swerve Strickland and not being happy with Ricochet, to the point that they zoomed in a couple of times. You could see her was actually physically sweating because she was getting so involved, nearly jumping the guardrail at certain points. In addition to that, whenever the camera would switch to the hard cam and face the ring, you could visibly see Leslie Jones up and out of her seat, jumping around, cheering on Swerve Strickland, not being happy with what Ricochet was doing at all. Now, seemingly she was there as a guest of Swerve Strickland. That's why she was cheering him on so much. And she wasn't in the crowd for every single match on the show, but certainly social media has got into overdrive talking about how she was behaving and her actions at the event. What did you think of this one? Did you think it was funny? Do you think it took away from the match? Did you like it? Are you happy to see celebrity influence when it comes to AEW shows? Let me know your thoughts and reactions to that one as well, because certainly it wasn't so much a botch or a mistake, but very much a WTF moment. Now, the Outrunners. The Outrunners, did they freeze last night? There were obviously some fantastic matches on last night's show with several 5-star bouts and several matches that will be considered match of the year contenders. But AEW Revolution was not without its faults, particularly when it came to, of course, the main event. Cope, Jon Moxley falling pretty flat. The decision for Christian Cage to cash in his contract, only to lose about 90 seconds later to Moxley's Bulldog choke. One of the matches that maybe won't be getting the critics' approval was the AEW World Tag Team Championship match between the Hurt Syndicate and the Outrunners. Now, the Outrunners, of course, a very popular tag team, certainly selling a lot of merchandise, doing good numbers on social media, get a good reaction from the crowd whenever they enter for their matches. They've got this sort of 1980s throwback gimmick. They're the youngest or the oldest men alive, however you want to put it out. They're the youngest men alive. And they had an AEW World Tag Team Championship opportunity against the Hurt Syndicate last night, but many people are pointing out that maybe the Outrunners froze in this big pressure situation for them on pay-per-view against an established tag team, two well-known talents in Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and it felt like the Outrunners maybe were a bit out of their depth or never really got going. This was evident in when there was a tag and one of the Outrunners jumped over into the ring. I believe it was Turbo Floyd jumped into the ring and tripped over the top rope. He tripped over the top rope after doing a load of stuff on the apron, getting the crowd back into it. It was going to be a big hot tag. Jumped over the rope and tripped and nearly fell into the ring. After that, it felt like he never really got his confidence back and never really got going, to the point that Shelton Benjamin at certain points actually kind of looked visibly frustrated with his opponent, hoping that he could help guide him through the match. But maybe it was more a deer in the headlights situation. So did the Outrunners freeze? Well, there was certainly a trip and a botch as he got into the ring. Now, Timeless Toni Storm. We saw one of the most brutal and violent women's matches in AEW history last night, as we finally got our Hollywood ending as Timeless Toni Storm retained her AEW Women's World Championship against Mariah May. There's been so much discussion about this match and possibly how it should have main evented the show. It's the third match in their trilogy. It's a story that AEW have been building and executing for well over 18 months at this point, really ever since Mariah May debuted in AEW. It's all been building to this, whether it's the heel turn, the title matches, the title switch, winning the title back, home countries, Toni Storm's amnesia, playing the greatest parts ever, and we saw a Hollywood ending in the City of Angels last night. It made perfect sense for it to main event the show, but so many people have questions. Did Timeless Toni Storm maybe go a little bit too far when it comes to her blade job last night? Toni Storm was the first to get colour in this this one. On the outside of the ring, you'll be able to see the picture very, very shortly, the screen grab. It was right there. And after she did blade herself to get the color, initially she did have a look to her as if to say, that's a lot of blood. And as you can see, as the bout continued and more weapons got involved, broken glass being taped to fists, it was an absolutely bloody and violent affair, which Mariah May also bled later on during this bout. You had the sort of discussion and the question, did maybe Storm go a little bit too far? Did she maybe bleed more than she anticipated? Did she maybe cut herself just a little bit deeper than was originally part of the plan? As you can see, it was smearing down all over her face. But was this part of the beauty of the match, the horrific beauty of the match, the just buckets and buckets of blood, a true Hollywood ending that was really a car crash to watch? I mean, that image right there, absolutely the proverbial crimson mask on the AEW Women's World Championship. So the question is, did Storm blade too deep? And because she bladed too deep, was that a botch? Was that a mistake? Or actually, did it make the match? Let me know your thoughts about that one too. And finally, speaking of injuries on this show, Will Osprey may be suffering one as well. Will Osprey, of course, defeated his former best friend Kyle Fletcher inside of a steel cage. Talk about, once again, a bloody affair. Both men spilled buckets of blood. We got thumbtacks, we got screwdrivers, obviously the use of the cage itself. We got just about everything you can possibly think of. And even Mark Davis, who wasn't even involved in terms of the actual match, managed to get inside the cage and got the cage drawn to his face, and he was bleeding too. The closing moments of this one saw Kyle Fletcher and Will Osprey scale up the cage, and the screwdriver that was introduced into the match by Fletcher was eventually used on Fletcher by Will Osprey. After that, they did one of the most death-defying moves you'll possibly ever see, a Spanish fly from the top of the cage over 15 feet, maybe even higher, down to the canvas below. And it wasn't a very good landing for both men, but particularly for the person actually executing the move, that being Will Osprey. As you can see in this screen grab, Osprey didn't land flat. Usually on the Spanish fly, you'll have one person facing back, one person facing forward. They flip. One does a back flip, one does a front flip, and they both land flat. That wasn't the case for Osprey. As he rotated, instead of landing really on his front, he actually landed on his side. And you could see after the match, particularly when he was exiting the ring, getting back up the ramp and posing to the crowd, he was visibly holding his hip, visibly holding his back. And you kind of forget watching a pro wrestling show just how unforgiving the canvas is. We have seen talents break ankles, break legs from jumping from the top of the cage, whether it's in AEW, Adam Copeland, whether it's in WWE, in Big Bronson Reed. So to do a Spanish fly from the top of the cage down to the ring and land on your hip, that's a good way to break a hip, dislocate it, something like that. We don't have any confirmation on any injury to Will Osprey just yet, but it was a nasty and a rough landing. And of course, if we get any information on possible injuries or anything like that to the aerial assassin, we'll let you know in a future video. So there you go, guys. Those are some botches, mistakes, and just general WTF moments coming out of last night's AEW Revolution pay-per-view. What did you make of some of these botches? What did you make of some of these mistakes? And what did you make of some of these general moments? Are there anything I've missed in terms of this video? Is there any botch or any mistake or any just general what the hell was that I haven't talked about or we haven't talked about here? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. A reminder, I will be live this evening for a Monday Night Raw on Netflix watch along as WWE Monday Night Raw emanates from Madison Square Garden, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the button to subscribe or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.